Hey everyone, welcome back to the Deep Research Podcast. We are so glad you're here with us today.
It is good to be back, although I have to say the mood in the studio, and really the mood everywhere, is a little different today.
Yeah, you can feel it. Usually we're here digging into historical trends or, some fascinating new tech breakthrough, maybe a cultural phenomenon. But today feels heavy.
It really does.
We're recording this on Friday, January 30, 2026. And if you've been looking at the news or even just doom scrolling on social media for 5 minutes, the atmosphere is thick. It's tense.
Tense is putting it mildly. The geopolitical dashboard is blinking red. All the lights are red right now.
Exactly. So here's the mission for today's deep dive. We aren't just going to recap the scary headlines. We're going deep into a specific stack of breaking reports, real-time military flight logs, which are, they're literally updating on our screens as we speak.
It's incredible to watch.
It is. And we've also got some leaked diplomatic cables that paint a pretty stark, detailed picture regarding the situation with Iran.
Right. And I think the goal here is to cut through the noise. Because right now, the signal-to-noise ratio is it's terrible. There's panic, there's propaganda, there's political spin, and then there's the actual data.
And we're focusing on the data.
We're focusing on the data, the logistics, the raw information.
And that leads me to the big misconception we need to address right off the bat. Because for weeks, really since the start of the year, we've been hearing wars coming, strikes are imminent. And honestly, as a listener or just a citizen living your life, it starts to feel like the boy who cried wolf.
It does. You get desensitized. It's a natural human reaction.
Exactly. It just feels like political posturing, saber rattling to get leverage in some backroom negotiation. You kind of tune it out after a while because nothing ever happens.
It's just rhetoric. You hear the bold headlines, you see the tough talk, and you think, okay, this is just a high-stakes staring contest. It's theater. But the sources we're analyzing today, they suggest we have moved well past the staring contest.
So we are done with the posturing. We've crossed that line.
Look, we're now looking at the physical mechanics of an imminent strike. That is what the logistics data shows. When you look at the movement of specific assets, fuel, ammo, specialized aircraft, even things like medical units, the chess pieces are no longer just being polished.
Or talked about.
Or talked about, exactly. They are being moved into attack positions. This isn't a drill anymore.
So that is our roadmap for this deep dive. We aren't just talking about general tensions. We are tracking specific bombers, the heavy hitters. We're looking at these mysterious sinking ships in the Caspian Sea that sound like something out of spy novel.
It really does.
We got secret flights to Moscow and this concept of a strike window that, according to our sources, opens today.
Today, Friday the 30th, once the markets close.
Right. So let's get into the weeds. I want to understand the sheer scale of this mobilization. Let's start with what's happening in the sky. Because if you look up, metaphorically, of course, unless you live near one of these air bases, the sky is filling up.
It absolutely is. And the clearest indicator we have, the absolute canary in the coal mine for a conflict of this scale, is the movement of the heavy bombers.
You're talking about the B-52s, the big ones.
The B-52 Stratofortresses. We have confirmation from the flight logs and open source intelligence, the OSINT trackers who watch the transponder data, that these massive aircraft have departed from Barksdale Air Force Base in Louisiana.
Okay, Barksdale, that's a major bomber base.
A very major one. But not just there. They've also launched from Fairchild Air Force Base in Washington State.
So, wait, that's from the Gulf Coast and the Pacific Northwest? That seems significant in itself. That's a coordinated coast-to-coast launch.
It is. It's not a regional rotation. It's a strategic surge. But they aren't flying straight to Tehran, obviously. They can't just loiter over the Middle East forever waiting for a go code.
No, of course not. That's not how it works. So where are they going?
They're staging. And this is the key detail in the reports that really signals intent. They're all converging and staging at Diego Garcia.
Diego Garcia. We hear that name pop up in military thrillers or, history books about the Gulf War. But let's break down why that specific spot on the map matters so much right now. Why not Qatar? Why not somewhere in Europe?
It all comes down to the physics of modern warfare and the geography of the region. Diego Garcia is a British Indian Ocean territory. It's this tiny atoll right in the middle of the Indian Ocean.
I've seen it on a map. It looks like a speck in this vast blue void. It's incredibly isolated.
It is, but strategically, it's a fortress. It's roughly 2,500 miles from Iran.
Okay, 2,500 miles.
Yeah.
To a layman, that sounds really far. Like, that's flying from New York to L.A. far. How is that an effective staging ground?
It's far for a small fighter jet, sure, but for a B-52, that's just a morning commute. The distance is the feature, not the bug. You see, that 2,500-mile buffer is absolutely crucial.
Why?
Because it puts the island well within the B-52's striking range. These birds have incredibly long legs and can fly intercontinental distances without even landing, but, and this is the key, it is outside the effective range of Iran's ballistic missiles.
I see, so it's a sanctuary.
It's a sanctuary. It's a floating aircraft carrier made of coral that is safe from immediate retaliation. If you park your multi-billion-dollar bomber fleet in, say, Al Udeid in Qatar or in the UAE, which is much, much closer.
You're a sitting duck.
You are a sitting duck. You are well within range of Iranian short-range and medium-range ballistic missiles. You risk losing your heavy hitters on the tarmac before they even start their engines. That would be a catastrophe.
That makes total sense.
Yeah.
You don't want your biggest assets, your queens on the chessboard, to be vulnerable.
Precisely. Diego Garcia allows the U.S. to mass this incredible firepower without that immediate existential risk. They can take off, they can fly the mission, refuel in the air, and then return to a safe haven to rearm for the next wave.
And when you say firepower, I mean, the B-52 is not a subtle aircraft. It's kind of a relic, right?
Yeah.
It's been flying since the 1950s. Why are we still using this as the tip of the spear in 2026?
Because it's a truck. A massive, reliable flying truck that simply works. It carries 70,000 pounds of ordnance.
70,000 pounds.
Just try to visualize that. That is 35 tons of high explosives on a single plane. When a B-52 arrives over a target, it doesn't just poke holes. If it's configured for saturation bombing or carrying heavy guided munitions like JDAMs, it can quite literally split a target area wide open.
It's not just a weapon, it's a message.
It's a devastating strategic bomber. It has a psychological impact that a fighter jet or a cruise missile just doesn't have. It's the shock and awe factor. When that shadow passes over, you know it's over.
And the fact that they're moving multiple B-52s there, likely joining B-1 Lancers, and possibly the B-2 Spirits, which are, harder to track.
Much harder to track.
It signals this isn't just a surgical strike. This isn't about hitting one radar dish. This is about overwhelming force.
This is about setting the conditions for a sustained campaign.
But here's the thing about bombers, and this is something that really jumped out at me going through these reports. They are completely and utterly useless without gas.
Right. The unsexy side of war. Logistics. It's not glamorous, but it wins wars.
It's the support cast. And the sources are lighting up about this. We are seeing KC-135 Stratotankers and the newer KC-46 Pegasus aircraft moving en masse.
And can you define en masse for us here? Are we talking a routine rotation, a couple of planes?
No, this is a surge. The flight logs show at least 3 more large tanker wings just headed out on the 30th. That's dozens of aircraft. And that's on top of what is already in the CNECOM theater.
Wow. That is massive. And the analysis here is just straightforward logistics math. You don't move that many gas stations into the sky for a simple patrol.
Right. You don't need that much gas for a training exercise or a flyby.
No. You move them to sustain a 247 bombardment campaign. You need to keep those fighters and bombers fueled around the clock. A fighter jet like an F-35 or an F-15, it burns through fuel incredibly fast when it's in combat maneuvering or using afterburners.
They need to top up constantly.
Constantly. So if there are bombers coming from Diego Garcia, they need to meet a tanker, probably a couple of tankers, on the way in.
To get to the target area.
Exactly. They hit the tanker, top off, do the strike, and then they have to hit the tanker again on the way back. The sheer volume of fuel being positioned suggests a high-tempo, continuous operation, not a one-and-done strike.
It's like they're building a bridge of fuel across the Indian Ocean.
That is a great way to put it, an air bridge. Without it, the whole operation halts before it starts. And it's not just fuel. We have these C-17 Globemasters hauling what are listed as unknown objects.
Unknown objects is always a comforting phrase in a military flight log.
Right. But we can make educated guesses based on the shape of the cargo containers and their destinations. It's likely rapid deployment, air defense systems, Patriots, maybe spare parts for the fighters, or specialized munitions that can't be stored long-term in the region.
Okay, so that's the muscle and the fuel. But let's talk about the invisible war for a second. Because while the B-52s are the sledgehammer, you need something to make sure the sledgehammer can actually swing without getting shot down.
This is maybe the most crucial piece of the puzzle.
This is where the EA-18G Growlers come in, right? I saw that in the report and wanted to dig into it.
Correct. We've got confirmation they have been deployed from Naval Air Station Whidbey Island and are now in theater. The Growler is
Well, think of it as a magician.
A magician. How so?
Its job is electronic warfare, EW. It doesn't necessarily shoot missiles at planes. It shoots electrons at radar systems. It uses incredibly powerful jammers and its AESA radar to perform a kind of magic trick.
So it just creates static, blinds them.
It's much more sophisticated than that. It can make the sky look completely empty to the enemy radar, even if it's full of bombers. It essentially makes the strike package invisible.
Wow.
Or, conversely, it can do something even more disorienting. It can make it look like there are 50,000 planes coming at you when there are none. It creates phantom fleets on the radar screen.
That is terrifying. If you're the radar operator on the ground in Tehran, you essentially have no idea what is real and what is an illusion. You are blind, or you're hallucinating, and your commanders are screaming at you for answers you don't have. And if you are blind, you cannot target the incoming B-52s or the F-35 stealth fighters that are also in the region. The Growler's job is to dismantle the enemy air defense network, what we call SEAD, or suppression of enemy air defenses.
So is the first one in?
It is the absolute prerequisite for any modern air war. You don't send the bombers in until the Growlers have done their work and kicked the door in electronically.
Right, so the fact that the Growlers are moving is almost a bigger tell than the bombers themselves.
I would argue it is. It signifies that the U.S. is preparing to not just enter, but to own the airspace over Iran.
And speaking of intimidation, I saw that Central Command CNTCOM actually tweeted a photo this morning, which just feels very...
It's 21st century warfare.
It's all part of the information war. They posted this stunning high-res photo of an FA-18 Super Hornet, loaded for bear, launching off the deck of the USS Abraham Lincoln. And the caption, or at least the context from the defense reporters who picked it up, was that they are already squawking at the Iranian border.
Right. Squawking means they're flying with their transponders on. Normally, in a prelude to war, you run silent, you go dark, you don't want to be seen electronically. But right now, they're patrolling right on the edge of Iranian airspace with the lights on, effectively.
So it's a taunt. It's a dare.
It's a taunt. They want to be seen. They want the Iranian radar operators to see that blip on their screen and know, we are here, we are armed, and we are watching you. It is psychological warfare before the first bomb even drops. It keeps the enemy on edge, it exhausts their crews, it forces them to burn fuel and flight hours responding to patrols.
It really feels like all the pieces are on the board. The air is absolutely saturated with assets. But I want to pivot now to something that really caught my attention in the New York Times and the Wall Street Journal reports we have in the stack.
The strategy shift.
Yeah. Because usually when we talk about this kind of conflict, we think airstrikes. Missiles from ships, bombs from planes, pilots safe in the cockpit at 30,000 feet. But the reporting suggests the president has been briefed on something bigger.
Much, much bigger. This is where we get into the internal debate between rare and well done.
Okay, you have to explain that analogy.
Yeah.
Rare versus well done. Is this some kind of Pentagon slang?
It's a grim steak analogy that's apparently circulating in the planning cells. The rare option is what we've seen in the past. It means limited strikes. You hit a few symbolic targets, maybe a couple of missile batteries, a radar site.
A slap on the wrist.
It's a slap on the wrist to say, cut it out. Don't do that again, and then everyone goes home. It's minimal risk, but it's also minimal reward. It doesn't solve the underlying problem.
So that's rare. What's well done?
Well done is the total collapse of the regime's ability to wage war. It means destroying the government command and control facilities, the IRGC headquarters, the communications grid, and most importantly, the entire nuclear program. Everything. And the reporting indicates that President Trump is looking very seriously at a plan that goes beyond just dropping bombs from on high. It involves Delta Force.
Boots on the ground.
Boots on the ground. Not an invasion, to be clear, but surgical special operations raids?
That is a massive escalation. I mean, my first question is why? Why send in operators when you have B-52s that can level a mountain? Why risk American lives in a direct ground raid?
Because of the physics of bunkers. Sometimes leveling the mountain isn't enough if the one thing you really want to destroy is buried hundreds of feet under the mountain.
We're talking about the nuclear program.
Exactly.
Right.
We know they have facilities, places like Fordo and Natanz, that are deep underground, reinforced with feet of concrete and steel. An airstrike, even with the massive GBU-57, the massive ordnance penetrator, or MOP, it might not guarantee a kill.
So you could drop the biggest conventional bomb the U.S. has, and the lights might just flicker down there. But the work continues.
Precisely. You might collapse the entrance tunnel, you might shake the ground, but the centrifuges deep inside could keep spinning. If your goal is permanent disarmament of their nuclear capability, air power alone has limits. There's always that element of doubt.
So if you want to be absolutely sure,
If you want to ensure the nuclear program is neutered, 100%, physically verified as destroyed, you cannot rely on gravity bombs alone. You send in Tier 1 operators.
so walk us through that. Just hypothetically, based on the doctrine and what the leaks are suggesting, what does a Delta Force raid on a nuclear site actually look like?
It is high-intensity, high-risk, lightning-fast violence. We were talking about them flying in under the cover of all those fighter jets and the Growlers we mentioned. They would likely use specialized stealth helicopters or V-22 Ospreys.
And they're not landing miles away and hiking in.
No, this is direct action. They land directly at the nuclear sites, right inside the compound, inside the perimeter. They would immediately engage in close quarters gun battles to neutralize the guards. And the sources are clear. The rules of engagement would be extremely permissive. They would kill anyone offering resistance.
And then they have to get inside the bunker itself.
Right. Breaching the bunker doors. That's a highly technical operation. They have specialized thermal breaching tools, shaped charges for this. Once they're inside, they don't just look around. Their mission is to plant physical explosives on the centrifuges, on the control systems, on the structural pillars of the bunker.
They destroy it from the inside out.
From the inside out, to ensure it is completely and irrevocably destroyed. Then they get their people and they extract as quickly as they came.
That is an incredibly high-risk operation. You're putting a small team, maybe a few dozen operators, deep inside hostile territory. So much could go wrong.
It is the definition of high risk, high reward. It's a zero-fail mission. But the reward, in the eyes of the planners, is certainty. You know the program is gone. You don't have to guess based on satellite photos of a crater.
And there's a specific asset mentioned in the flight logs that really supports this theory that ground ops are on the table.
Yes. The Ghost Rider.
The AC-130J.
The AC-130J Ghost Rider. This isn't a bomber, it's a gunship. It's built on a C-130 cargo plane frame, but it is modified to be, well, armed to the teeth, is the common phrase.
What does that mean exactly? What's it carrying?
It carries a 105mm howitzer, which is basically a tank cannon, and a 30mm Gatling gun, all fired out the side of the aircraft.
A tank cannon on a plane.
Fired out the side, yes. And its job is close air support, or CAS. It flies in a slow pylon turn, a steady circle over target area, and just rains down incredibly precise fire to protect guys on the ground.
So it's an angel on their shoulder.
A very loud, very destructive angel. You don't use an AC-130 to bomb a building from 30,000 feet. It flies low and slow. You use it specifically to clear the path for Special Operations Forces, for JSOC.
So if the AC-130 is there, it means there is almost certainly someone on the ground for it to protect.
Exactly. The fact that the Ghost Rider is moving into theater is one of the strongest indicators we have that ground operations are not just a theory. They are a prepared, briefed, and ready-to-execute option.
That gives me chills. It's one thing to launch a missile from a ship 100 miles away. It's another to send in the gunships and the operators.
Yeah.
It implies a level of commitment, of finality we haven't seen in decades.
And it aligns perfectly with the rhetoric we're hearing from the Secretary of War, P. Hegseth.
Right. I read the transcript of his briefing yesterday. He's talking about reestablishing deterrence. What does that really mean?
His comments were very telling. He referenced Operation Midnight Hammer and the previous 12-day war scenarios as the blueprint. The philosophy isn't just about causing damage. It is about, in his words, rebuilding the perception of America.
So making adversaries afraid again. Is that a fair way to put it?
That's the core of it, yes. The goal is to ensure Iran cannot build a bomb or threaten the West again for a generation. And they seem willing to take these drastic measures to prove that point. It's about restoring the fear of consequences.
So we have the Air Armada, we have the special ops plans, but then there's this whole other layer of activity, the shadow war.
Stuff happening in the margins, in the gray zone.
Yeah, and the story about the ships in the Caspian Sea, I mean, when I first read this in the report, I had to double-check the map. It is just weird.
It's fascinating, isn't it? It's like a different kind of warfare entirely.
So break it down for us. What is happening in the Caspian?
Okay, so first, a quick geography check for everyone listening. The Caspian Sea is landlocked. It's the world's largest inland body of water. You can't just sail a U.S. Navy destroyer in there. It's bordered by Russia, Iran, Kazakhstan, Azerbaijan.
Right, it's a lake, basically. A giant strategic lake.
Exactly. And we have confirmed reports of an Iranian cargo ship, the Caspian Shiva, sinking or at least running aground and taking on massive amounts of water near the Russian port of Astrakhan.
Yes, accidentally. Bad weather. a navigational error.
Well, the official line might be weather or a mechanical failure, but here's the crucial context. This is the second ship to meet this fate in as many weeks. Another vessel, the Rona, sank back on January 14th in the same general area.
Okay, 2 ships in 2 weeks. That's not a coincidence. That's a pattern.
It is absolutely a pattern, and these aren't just random fishing boats or grain haulers. We check the registry and the shipping manifests. These ships navigate the specific route used to transport Iranian Shahed drones and missile components to Russia for use in the Ukraine war.
Ah, so these are the supply lines. This is the hardware pipeline.
Exactly. This is the Ghost Fleet pipeline of weapons from Tehran to Moscow. And suddenly, right before a potential conflict kicks off between the U.S. and Iran, the ships start sinking.
That screams sabotage. There's no other logical explanation.
It does. Whether it's small, unmanned sea drones, explosives placed by covert operatives at the dock before they sailed, or even cyber attacks disabling their navigation systems and causing them to run aground, it is highly, highly likely to be sabotage.
And what's the strategic goal there? What does that accomplish?
It effectively severs the supply line between Iran and Russia at the most critical possible moment. It isolates them from each other. If you can't move the weapons, the alliance weakens. It tells Russia, your partner is about to be very busy, and by the way, their help isn't coming.
It's like a spy novel playing out in real time. And speaking of rats leaving a sinking ship, or maybe just elites fleeing a sinking country, we have to talk about the mystery plane.
The flight tracker data. This was blowing up us in Twitter yesterday. It was incredible to watch.
This was wild. You had 17,000 people tracking this one flight live online. It's a VIP aircraft, the type used by high-ranking Iranian officials, taking off from Tehran and making what they called a manned dash to Moscow.
Right, no flight plan filed, just its transponder on, booking it north over the Caspian Sea as fast as it could go.
Do we know who was on it?
We don't. And that is the billion-dollar question. Is it the Ayatollah's family? The vice president? High-ranking IRGC generals getting out before the fireworks start?
It feels like a scene from a movie about a regime starting to crack.
It absolutely parallels what we saw in the fall of Kabul with the Ghani government, or in Venezuela. When the elites start fleeing, it means they know something the public doesn't. They know the hammer's about to drop, and they're getting their families and probably their hard currency out to safety. And Moscow is that safe haven.
So they are running to Putin for protection.
Essentially. And meanwhile, on the ground in Tehran, what's happening with the regular people?
That's maybe the most tragic part of this. The mayor of Tehran has officially opened all the city's metro stations and underground parking lots as war shelters. They're clearing out the cars and bringing in water and supplies.
Wow. That is a grim reality check for the civilians. That brings it home. It's not just politics on TV anymore. It's survival.
It is. And there's another evacuation that is even more telling. At the Bushehr nuclear plant, reports are coming in that the Russian scientists and technicians are preparing to evacuate.
The Russians are leaving. I thought they were basically running that place.
They are. Russia built that reactor. They have hundreds of staff there providing technical support. But the fact that they are pulling their own people out is a huge, huge signal.
Why is that so significant?
Because Russia explicitly warned the UN Security Council just last week of a Chernobyl-level disaster if the Bushehr site is hit. But their actions evacuating their own people imply they believe the site will be hit. They're not betting on diplomacy anymore. They're betting on airstrikes.
Wow. So the Russians are packing up. But that brings us to the broader geopolitical picture. Because while the Russian scientists are leaving, the Russian warships are arriving.
This is the high-stakes poker game playing out in the ocean. The great power standoff.
We have multiple sources confirming that China and Russia are rushing warships to the Sea of Oman and the northern Indian Ocean.
Right next to the U.S. fleet, the USS Abraham Lincoln Carrier Strike Group.
And the official reason they're giving is joint exercises.
Joint exercises, right? That is the classic diplomatic cover. Oh, we just happen to schedule a complex multinational war game right here, right at this exact moment.
But what's the real reason, the strategic reason?
They are trying to park their ships next to American ships to act as human shields, or at least as a very complicated deterrent.
A human shield or a ship shield?
Exactly. The logic is the Americans won't fire a cruise missile if they think they might hit a Chinese or Russian destroyer by mistake. It complicates the entire targeting picture for the U.S. Navy. It creates what they call clutter. If you launch a Tomahawk missile and it has to fly past a Chinese destroyer to hit an Iranian frigate, that is an incredibly risky shot.
But why risk it? Why stick your neck out for Iran? I mean, does China really care that much about the Ayatollah?
Motivation is key here, and it's different for both of them. For China, it's about energy security. You have to remember, the sanctions landscape has changed. They lost their access to Venezuelan oil. They absolutely cannot afford to lose Iranian oil, too. It would cripple their economy.
So it's about the oil.
It's always about the oil for Beijing. And for Russia, Iran is their last real functional ally in the Middle East. They need those drones for the war in Ukraine. If the Iranian regime falls, Russia loses its foothold in the region and a critical supply chain. They're desperate to keep the current government in power.
But the U.S. response, I mean, looking at the language in these leaked cables, the stance from the White House seems incredibly aggressive.
It is. The leaked cables suggest the warning given to Beijing and Moscow through back channels is effectively, if you touch our boats or if you interfere with our operations in any way, we will sink you. No ambiguity.
That's shades of the Cold War.
It's blunder. The historical parallel being drawn in the documents is the lead-up to Pearl Harbor. The U.S. Navy, specifically the USS Abraham Lincoln Strike Group, is surrounded by its own screen of Arleigh Burke-class destroyers and Virginia-class attack subs. The source material refers to the Russian and Chinese naval assets currently in the region as junk compared to U.S. capability.
Junked. That's harsh language.
It is blunt, but from a purely naval engineering standpoint, it's not inaccurate. The Chinese ships in that specific task force are older models. The Russian ships are aging and have had readiness issues. In a blue water engagement, the U.S. Navy has a massive technological advantage. Better radar, better missiles, better network integration.
But the danger isn't just about who has the better boat, is it?
No, not at all. The danger is miscalculation. Even an old ship can fire a missile. If a missile goes astray, or if a ship gets too aggressive with its maneuvering and there's a collision, you could have a skirmish that drags 3 nuclear superpowers into a direct conflict over the skies of Iran.
It's a power keg.
A floating powder keg in the middle of the world's most important shipping lanes.
So we have the mobilization, the shadow war, the geopolitical standoff. The question on everyone's mind, the listener's mind, is when and why now?
Well, the why part seems simple at this point. It's a diplomatic dead end.
Right. We heard that Turkey, Qatar, and Oman were all trying to broker some last-minute talks.
They tried. Those back channels were open for weeks, and the result, according to our sources, was total failure. The Iranian position hasn't budged on the nuclear issue. The U.S. position hasn't budged. The negotiations have ceased.
And there's an old maxim in geopolitics.
When the lines of communication cut, the bullets start flying.
Silence is violence in this case.
Silence is the precursor to violence. And as for the when, the source material is very, very specific about a strike window.
It mentioned Friday, today.
The exact wording is, the strike window opens Friday once the markets close.
That makes a cynical kind of sense, doesn't it? You don't want to crash the global stock market while it's open.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It sounds cold, but war is often timed around economics. You launch major operations on a Friday night or a Saturday morning. It minimizes immediate panic in the New York, London, and Tokyo stock exchanges.
It gives you a buffer of time.
It gives you 48 hours of operations, the weekend war, to achieve your initial objectives before the opening bell on Monday. By the time the markets open Monday morning, you want to be able to issue a statement saying the operation was a success, the primary targets have been destroyed, stability is returning.
It's grim to think about war in terms of stock market hours, but that is the reality of our interconnected world.
It is the reality of 21st century global conflict. And there's one more timeline factor we have to mention, HAAD.
The missile defense system.
Terminal High Altitude Area Defense. The sources say these systems are landing in the region within 24 to 72 hours. That puts them fully operational by January 31st or February 1st.
Which aligns perfectly with a weekend operation.
It aligns perfectly. COD is the shield. You don't swing the sword until your shield is up. COD is designed to shoot down ballistic missiles in their terminal phase as they're coming down from space. Once that system is active and networked, you can better protect U.S. bases and allies, like Israel, from the missiles Iran would almost certainly fire in retaliation.
And we can't ignore Israel's role in all this. They're not just a bystander.
No, absolutely not. The reports are clear that Israel is pressing the U.S. very hard. They view a nuclear Iran as a true existential threat, a one-bomb, one-country scenario. They want the U.S. to join the strikes, and they are specifically pushing for the complete destruction of Iran's ballistic missile program. They want those missiles gone for good.
So let's try to synthesize all of this. Because it is a lot of moving parts, it can be overwhelming.
It is. So as we begin to wrap things up, let's just look at the entire board one more time.
Okay. We have The bombers, the heavy-hitting B-52s staging at Diego Garcia, building that long-range hammer. We have the specialized tools, the Growlers to jam the radar, the AC-130s for ground support if those Delta Force teams go in.
Right. We have the defense arriving, the THAAD missile shield is being put into place, and we have the motive, the complete failure of talks, and the ongoing nuclear threat.
And on the other side, we have the warning signs, the evacuation of the Russian scientists from Bushehr, the fleeing VIP plane to Moscow. These are the canaries in the coal mine.
They are. The entire world is literally holding its breath for the weekend.
It feels like we are watching a train wreck in slow motion, but the train is loaded with explosives and it's headed for a chemical plant.
That is a very apt and terrifying description.
I think I want to leave our listeners with one final thought, a provocative question to consider. We talked about the big plan, the well-done option, and Delta Force.
Right.
If that plan goes forward, if they actually put American boots on the ground to hit those nuclear sites or leadership targets, we aren't just looking at an air war anymore.
No. That's a point of no return. We would be looking at a potential regime change operation, whether intended or not.
Exactly. And that raises a massive world-altering question. What does the Middle East look like on Monday morning if the Iranian government has collapsed? What fills that vacuum?
Chaos. A new democracy. Civil war. Another strong man.
It is the great unknown. We learned hard lessons in Iraq and Afghanistan and Libya that knocking over the regime is often the easy part. The truly hard part is what comes next. And as the old saying goes, once you break it, you own it.
That is a very sobering thought to end on. We will be tracking this all weekend. If things develop, you can be sure we will be looking at the updates.
Absolutely. We'll be watching closely.
And on that note, stay curious. Keep those questions coming. We want to know what you think. Are we looking at a weekend war, or is this the biggest geopolitical bluff in modern history?
Indeed. Let's all hope for the bluff, but the data is preparing us for the war.
Until next time, keep watching the horizon. And don't forget to subscribe to the Deep Research Podcast to stay on top of this developing story. We will see you in the next deep dive.
Goodbye, everyone. Stay safe.